Welcome to another episode of VNture Podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am MR, and together with Tauros, we shall venture into another discussion about VNs. It's time for our annual Readport, in which we both share what we've been up to since our last one. So tell me, Tauros, what kind of cryptic mystery have you been reading?
I'd love to tell you. I just recently got myself a Nintendo Switch, and there's a few visual novels on that system I've been interested in checking out, one of which is Master Detective Archives Raincode. That is a mouthful of a name, I'm not going to lie, so I suppose from here on out, I'm just going to call it Raincode.
Yeah.
It honestly, we have to start with the Danganronpa comparisons. This is created by several of the same key members that were on the original Danganronpa development, most notably the art style and the character designs. And if you're looking at the screenshots that are rolling past on our layout, you can very easily see this for yourself right at a glance.
Yeah.
In this time, though, we have ourselves a protagonist who is part of a worldwide detective organization. He is a master detective, but he has amnesia. So unfortunately, that always adds wrinkles into plans. And he's trying to figure out what is going on, what happened, what kind of deal with the devil he seems to have made, all while investigating various mysteries in the questionable world around him.
Huh.
And of course, it's going to involve a little murder mystery once or twice along the way.
Yeah. The staple, yeah, sure.
A staple. And it follows the same format where there's, I guess you could say there's the beforehand where it's the main character and the other characters hanging around doing their stuff. Suddenly, there is the crime, and then it goes to the investigation phase where you talk to people and find clues in your environment. And then it turns into the, I guess you could say, deduction phase, where on the face of it, it's you piecing together clues to make leaps in logic and, new plot twists emerge. But just like in Danganronpa, it's in a very gameplay-heavy, stylized format.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have all of these simple, all the simple yes and no questions get turned into whole spectacles. Whether it's playing a rhythm-based 3D action RPG style format, whether you're careening down a minecart, whether you're stuck having to play mini games as you spell out the answer to the word as you're frantically just trying to get the freaking letter you want when you know it and the time limit is counting down. What the heck?
I see. I mean, I haven't read Danganronpa, but I did read Phoenix Wright, and your probably favorite entry in the series, so Zero Time Dilemma. So, given those examples, how could you liken this one to those?
Not much at all.
Okay.
Ace Attorney is extremely straightforward, where you have yourself, the crime, the investigation, and the courtroom scenes, and it's entirely presenting evidence and giving answers to the occasional yes or no question.
I think it's more about cross-examination, right? That's the big selling point.
Yes. And Zero Time Dilemma... Zero Time Dilemma is much more about puzzles in an environment room, which sort of happens here, but not really. There's no real legalese, logic, deduction, breakdown sort of things.
Okay,
it's very similar to Danganronpa, so I mean, if you haven't read that, then unfortunately you're missing the most direct comparison.
Yeah, I understand. That's why I'm trying my best to liken to the things I did read, especially since you mentioned piecing together clues, because that was a big part of Phoenix Wright, right? The one thing that this did not fit your description is fighting for them using gameplay. That doesn't really happen in Phoenix Wright.
Oh, no. And so, obviously, you have to compare this to Danganronpa. And although I enjoyed the DR series and all the things they did, so far, I'm still very early in Raincode, but so far, it seems like the highs are not as high, and it still has the dumb lows of the DR series.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my biggest complaints with this so far is that feels like there's a lot of padding and a lot of nothing, where animations just take seconds longer, and there are transition scenes that just keep going on, and you're like, where is this going? And a lot of the 3D animation stuff. Like when I think about the prologue, there's a lot of stuff that happens just between setting up the game and some crazy plot twists and the developments and how they introduce the setting and stuff to you. There's a lot that happens.
Okay.
But throughout the Chapter 0 prologue, a lot of the time I was feeling like, can we get a move on? This is kind of dragging and dragging and dragging.
Huh. I mean, and I know that you're trying to not steer in that direction, but I'm still going to drag to a comparison to Phoenix Wright. Because I feel like it really rarely had some padding. Like, that game was pretty much had a smooth sailing, at the very least from the titles I did play. Rarely did it felt that was dragging on. The only times I felt that Phoenix Wright was dragging on when I couldn't figure out how to proceed. But other than that, it was more pretty straightforward. You get close, you question witnesses, gather evidence, and then prepare for the courtroom cross-examination, right? And from what I hear from you, this Master Detective kind of drags on a lot of elements?
Kind of. It's been a while since I've played Ace Attorney. I can't remember exactly how that went or how the pacing of it went. But, this is just my impression of Raincode so far. We'll see how it goes, because I'm still pretty early into it.
Did you feel like the dragging aspect was something very apparent in Danganronpa as well?
Not that I recall.
Huh.
I think it helped that the minigames in Danganronpa were generally very direct. I really love Danganronpa's whole, mostly of the trials, where there's all the text on the screen and you shoot it through. I think that fit a lot more than what Raincode's trying to do. And the minigames were at least vaguely related to words and logic and stuff. I mean, some of Raincode, I'm wondering if this is just for the sake of it being in.
I see. So, because even though I haven't played any Danganronpa, the moment you mentioned trial, I already saw those. Like, this is so popular, so widespread in general culture, be it in memes, pictures, something like that, in GIFs. Like, I've seen how trial looks like in Danganronpa. It's so iconic.
Yes. I think Raincode has the unfortunate situation of trying to follow up on that because it still has a great art style. I love its design. I love the character designs. I love the art direction. And the music is also a bop just as much as Danganronpa was. I just think, if something like this came out first, there'd be a lot more praise for it. But unfortunately, it's kind of following in DR's footsteps. And that's no fault of Raincode. It's not really fair to say that of them, but I still want to reiterate, I love those aspects of it.
I see. Do you feel how do you feel about playing it on Switch? Because that's kind of important aspect of it, right?
A bait and switch?
No, Switch, Nintendo Switch. How do you feel like?
The console itself.
Yeah. Is it better than
it's all right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not really sure what to describe about it here. In this case, it's a good system. It does what it does. I mean, other video games like Super Smash Bros. Brawl or Mario Kart would be a lot more applicable to kind of talking about its technical aspects and whatnot.
Yeah, but
for visual novels on consoles, it's always been a little funny to me because for a lot of them, they're pretty basic. It's, you just got to show the scenes and you got to show the text and you got to have your typical functionality like backlogs and auto skip and whatnot. There's a few visual novels that really push the system to its limits. Yeah. Like obviously the Tsukihime remake is one of the big guns. But for a lot of them, it's very plain. And Raincode, is somewhere in the middle, because as you could tell from these screenshots, it's like a 3D models everywhere. And they do have some action scenes, and they have some elements where, it's kind of really going all out. To the point where, I don't think a typical, computer or laptop could be running this sort of visual novel.
Uh-huh.
It's only available on the Switch, but I'm just, assuming.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I understand.
So, I mean, the technical fidelity is definitely there, and it's impressive in its own right. So I got to give it huge props for that.
Yeah, but my question basically boils down to, you feel like it was enhanced by being on Switch and you experience it through Switch instead of PC. I know for a fact when I played Hatsumira, it was available on Steam, and I went with Steam Deck to play it. And ultimately, when I had the choice, I immediately switched to PC. So it was so much more comfortable for me to play. I felt like when it comes to playing VNs on handheld, I just don't like it whenever I have a choice.
I misunderstood you. I've been playing my Switch in docked mode.
Sorry?
I've been playing my Switch on the docked mode. So it shows up on my monitor, and
Okay.
I also, same here, I don't really prefer the handheld because it's pretty small, and when you're trying to read text, it's not always readable.
Yeah.
Speaking of text and readability, one last thing I wanted to say about this game's kind of parting thoughts is that it's listed on vndb.org as a visual novel, but I really have to question if this game counts as a visual novel. To be honest, I don't really think it does. There's a lot of text, and there's narration, obviously, but there's so much action too, you could say. There's a lot of navigating, the 3D world. There's a lot of walking your way through the crime scenes and finding hints in the environment and talking to other characters. Things that would play out more like a typical RPG styled game. And then when you do get to the whole deductions, again, that also plays out like a video game, where more often than not, you're choosing the answers to questions in a very stylized gameplay sort of manner, instead of reading as the focus. So honestly, I'm not really sure that this should count as a visual novel. I'm also mentioning this because there is another game I like, Nausea, which was somewhat recently delisted from VNDB, and that's its whole other issue. But it's another game where it's like, the question is this a visual novel just because there's a ton of text and you spend a lot of time reading, when the emphasis of Nausea was more of a werewolf-styled social deduction game?
I mean, this is such a hard question to answer. What's the status of Phoenix Wright on VNDB? Is it?
That's the other thing. Phoenix Wright is still on VNDB, even though for many reasons it also shouldn't count. But it has like a special banner at the top that it says, this is a special case. It's really pushing the line of what can be considered a visual novel. And so I'm wondering, how come Nausea has to be removed? Why can't that also have a special banner that this is a special case? Why can't, Detective Raincoat, Master Detective Archives Raincoat, why can't that game also get the VN banner on VNDB?
The only thing that comes to mind... The only thing that comes to mind is maybe its popularity. That it's as simple as that. Phoenix Wright is recognizable, so they want to emphasize that this is a special case. And the ones that are very unknown or niche within a niche, which don't get that.
They've mentioned before that the reason they haven't taken Ace Attorney off of VNDB is because it would cause more problems than it would solve. Which, I'm pretty sure if you read between the lines, it's too many people would get pissy about it.
Yeah.
That's a big reason. I'm sure there's others, but still.
Because the question you posed about the intention and how the title structure, that you spend way more time doing the gameplay elements than reading, even if reading is integral part and that there's a lot of it. The one game that comes to mind, again, the one that is very much a niche and rarely talked about, is Trillion. Trillion God of Destruction is a similar vein in which the game revolves around kind of premises, kind of funny. You start by being invaded by a huge final boss, which has trillion HP, and your goal is to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it takes the entire game to kill it. That's the premise. And you iterate and you kept going to the gameplay element over and over and over again. And for every failure, you talk with those characters. Why did you fail? And how to improve, how to train, etc., etc. So the gameplay loop is very much focused about fighting all the time, constantly, even though after every single encounter you go back to the VN mode, you have all the dialogue boxes, you have all the sprites, background, there's a lot of text, but ultimately the purpose for this game and the main, for lack of a better word, gimmick is, you're fighting the final boss immediately and all the time.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know.
I mean, I don't want to turn this whole episode into something about the whole what is a VN. We could be here all day.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of, I do regret that there has to be some sort of hard distinction, and that VN2B is wishy-washy about several things. But even despite that, I am enjoying reading Rain-Code so far. It's fun, and hopefully there'll be even more twists and turns in store for me.
Yeah, exactly. How you enjoy. I am looking forward to hearing your final impression, because I don't know how about you, but for me, the endings could redeem the story, even if you have some problems with it and with the pacing, etc.
Mm-hmm. Of course. So we'll see how that plays out. But for this month, what have you been up to, MR?
Oh, speaking of redemption, I finished Blood Gaia. Oh my god, where do I even begin? And
At the beginning.
maybe I'll use my book to do a quick synopsis about the set.
I'm sorry. What book?
I have my art book from the Kickstarter that has all the descriptions for the game, and this is how they describe it. The island of Palastra, once the shining gem of the Golden Age. However, now the oceans have receded, and beer fries have plummeted for all races. Grotesque creatures of unknown origin roam the lands. Ether, a new energy source discovered by Archduke of the sorcerer's city of Energeia. Theophrat may hold the key to saving the realm. The Holy Dragon Empire Grand Late outlawed the use of Ether as heresy, declaring a holy war Energeia. And that's the setting. You kinda play the mad scientist who discovered new source of energy in a time when everything seems to suffer in a way that crops are withering, all the farm animals are dying, and they have a crisis of production. That's why your city, your country that you're trying to shape up uses new alternative source of energy, which has been deemed heretic by the main force of that universe. And what a tale it is, I have to say, it's very Venus Bleu-ish. They have a certain theme to them. They kind of like some sort of new setting that is grim in nature. Your protag often is on side of rebellion, which is fair enough. The most intriguing stories are of the underdogs. In this case, you are a leading country, completely new founded. You have one city, but unlike the other cities, yours float. And now you explore. That's the
Floats?
setting. Yeah, it floats in there.
In the air, midair.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you just travel all across the land and visit different countries to negotiate, which often fails, and you go to the battle and wage war with all other neighboring countries. It's whenever I talk to you about Venus Blood, they tend to structure the story into global crisis. It has some sort of resolution, but it requires you to be resolute in one of two paths, one of which tends to be chaotic, and this follows the similar pattern. This is third Kickstarter they funded, and I feel like in terms of quality of release, I think this is the second one. The very first one that they kickstarted was the earliest title from all the Kickstarters. The second one was probably more popular, but later on. And this one is somewhat in the middle. So since the last title, it felt like downgrade in some aspects, including story, in my opinion. Because what made this series very intriguing to me when I read the first Venus Blood is how detached your relationship with characters, obtainable heroines, was detached from the fate of the world. So you could be very lawful ruler and then be, how can I say it, very unaffectionate about with those characters, and they would rebel against you. Or the opposite, you would be very chaotic, but they would like you anyway.
Like in the main storyline?
Yeah, exactly.
Darn.
Sadly, this title doesn't do that. Basically, you kind of lean into I'm a good boy when you go to the lawful solution, or I'm kind of, I don't know how to phrase it correctly, because it's not pure evil, but you are very
Shades of Grey?
pragmatic with your approach to solution. That's the chaotic approach. Like you do one deal breaker, no one likes that, but you say this is the most straightforward solution. Let's go with that. The environment will thank me, kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it breaks off everything. Like everyone's like, no, that's the one thing I won't agree on because it hurts my agriculture or maybe culture or something else. So that's something I was disappointed in, that there is no mix and matching, because that made the first title very replayable. You had very varied cast of characters. Each of them could have a different ending in the entire world. What happened? Like, that was super cool. This doesn't go that far, which is kind of disappointing to me.
Darn, yeah.
Yeah, but the characters themselves were freaking amazing. So I have to give kudos to that. Last time you asked me who is the best character.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I haven't laughed so hard. And I wasn't so angry for the longest time with that character. Okay, let me explain. This character is amazing. I love the Harpy Merchant. That character was just phenomenal. Because I feel like this is something that I really like when character, be it obtainable heroines or protagonist itself, knows how to deal with others. They have that vibe, they resonate. And the most hilarious event was when she was prepared. Okay, this is my dream. I want to achieve it. I have all the arguments, regardless of whether or not the protag will agree or not. And if you choose, no, this idea sounds stupid, she has such a good counter arguments, you have to agree to that. And I just loved it. How prepared was she for that? That is so cool.
Oh.
The fact that
so
she
what did you do? What did you do, Amar?
I played this game 6 times, so it's very hard to tell me to answer that question. I love the fact when you could reject her proposal, and she's like, no, not so fast. And then you have to reluctantly agree. Yeah, okay, fine. It's just amazing. That's very unique character because she's a merchant. She's a harpy merchant, and she uses all the connections throughout your adventure. And I feel like I always like those characters that have excuse or at least reason to explore the world. And that's exactly what she was doing. Every single time you arrived at New Kingdom and she's like, okay, listen, my pack of birds told me this is how it's done here, okay? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I need more of that. That was so great. I just loved it. And why I'm angry on that? Because one of those countries that you visit, I just didn't care. You had an interesting, isolated elven society. That was the one country. Another was kind of blend of Japanese folklore with their yokai, you know, this classic nine-tailed fox deities.
Classic.
Yeah, the classic, right? Another was just phenomenal arc of never-ending darkness country that is ruled by undeads. And the last is pirates, just pirates.
Okay. A lot of those sound fun.
Yeah, and the pirates, okay, that's kind of blunt. Yeah, you have weird, disconnected government ruled by some band of thieves, basically. You kind of negotiate with them, but they kind of betray them. It's weird. And if you don't pick that country as first one, you will be locked out from her ending. I'm like, are you kidding? That's the least important. No! I was so angry because I really wanted to see how her story develops, and she's connected with those pirates deeply. I'm like, I was so disappointed. Oh my god.
Let's see. There is a whole combat system to this game. Now that you've beaten it and I assume now you're an expert at this. Have your thoughts changed at all about this combat system now from when you first started playing?
Oh my god, this is what I said a week ago. I really thought, okay, this is another Venus Blood. This is my third time. Let's try it on hard mode because it's a strategy game. Ultimately, this time you are pretty much defending your floating fortress, and I just couldn't. I lost so many times. I almost got pissed and decided, nope. Calm down. Let's play it on normal, and then let's return it. I have to say, gameplay was a ton of fun. There is something very personal they do with Venus Bloods that I really love. You form your divisions, your squads, your army, and you pick those characters that you like, that looks cool. Maybe you have a theme. You like some beasts. You have a beast team with all the bestials, like Cerberus is a typical beast.
Yeah, when you have all the characters and you're thinking about who to add to your party, sure, there's the gameplay aspect, but part of it's also, you want to bring along the people you like.
Exactly. And there's like separation. You have units that are from the story, derived from the story, or commanders, oftentimes described like that. And you have like common grunts, your foot soldiers, right? And those fill out the ranks of your army. And it's funny that in this game, I feel more so than the others, some of those regular grunts also take part in the story. I was so surprised because those regular units, the most normal, it's a Minotaur, whatever it is. I saw that in previous games. I was like, okay, funny Minotaur, she defends, that's it. But here in this story, yeah, she was here. I was like, whoa. So, because Venus Blood as a series have, I wouldn't call it bestiary, but maybe that's a proper term, has a shared pool of characters for the army, so the grunts, right? Across their series, some of entries in the series expand upon those units, how they would fare as in this case, it was Imperial Guard, your own personal Imperial Guard that protected you. And their hijinks. You had like half, oh my god, half orc that was a scouting unit that rode upon, if you ever watched the movie Back to the Future, a hoverboard basically. And that was your scout that scouted areas for you to explore or your own city. Like that's cool nuance. I didn't knew that. Now I understand how that character behaves. Like I was super surprised. That was so cool. Because not only does that expand those characters in this game, but it provides context for those characters in all other games that they exist also. Yeah, I want more of that.
Okay.
That was so fun.
And so we're going to start wrapping things up soon. So what are your final thoughts about the game?
I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that, given my initial thoughts about the gameplay, I would be so annoyed that I didn't know what was happening. But no, it was super cool. It was super fresh because it was different enough that I had to formulate different gameplay strategies, but still relatable enough that I could transfer some knowledge from across the universes. Kind of fine. And the story itself was very interesting. It was... While the others oftentimes use an excuse of, oh, it's magic and I'm an ancient demon. That's it. That's a lot of the things that use that kind of excuse. This one was, yeah, it's a technological arms race. I'm a mad scientist and I'll do anything to ensure victory. And if you go too far, people won't like that. that was the big moral compass. How far is too far? Hey, man.
That sounds like a very engaging story. Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds super cool.
Yeah, I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised. There were some plot twists I just... Whoa, I did not... And maybe, you know what? Maybe this is the why. This is why I like Venus Blood. Because those type of titles and series tend to go out of left field with their plot twist, contrivances, and I just can't seem to get a good grasp and figure it out early. Whereas when it comes to mundane, I'm not saying mundane, but rather more grounded in reality mysteries, I kind of figure out quite easily what's the main plot twist. And I just can't seem to figure out Venus Blood. It's, in a way, too crazy for me to understand. And maybe that's it. That's the entertainment I like from it.
Oh, that's great. What a way to wrap everything up.
Exactly.
And on that note, that concludes today's episode of our Readport. I hope you enjoyed us talking about the visual novels we've been reading, and I hope you've learned a lot about these titles as well.
Yep. Thanks for all our listeners, and until next time, venture out.
Venture out.